Okay, so the topic that I was requested to share today is on report writing, and in the context of primarily FYP, right? So I'll be sharing some of the things that I think would be beneficial if you want to apply. Yeah. Okay, and just a note there that this will be presentation will be about primarily how to write a report and not how to get entries into a report. Right? So we go about to think from the beginning what is the structure, why we should put, what we should put, etc. Okay. I begin with this quote. Always begin with the end in mind. Hopefully this is quite familiar quote for you. Tak tahu familiar ke? Anyone have never heard of this? Have you ever heard 7 Habits by Stephen Covey? Pun tak tahu. Do you read any books outside? Yeah. So basically, okay, this is just some of the books that is quite good for anyone to read actually. Like they have done research of the similar habit of all the successful people, and they see that there are 7 traits or 7 habits. One of it is always begin with the end in mind, meaning whatever they do, they already know what they want to achieve in the end, right? So when, including the report, when you start to write, you should already know what this should be in the end, not just, otherwise you will go into a failure in a way. Right, so the first question I would ask is, what is the report for? Right, so some of the early slides is more on the thinking process that I expect you should already gone through, because this is already towards the end of your FYP 1, right? And what do you want to achieve from the report, right? Of course, some of these questions assume that you want to do the report, because for some reason I don't want actually, but I have to because, right? But even then, it should have the purpose, because if you actually, let's say, you want to get a good grade from it, then it should reflect what the report is for, and you have to tailor it in that sense. Now, when we talk about FYP, final year project, I believe you already know that it's in what we are doing here. It is divided into 2, right? This semester FYP 1, next semester FYP 2, inshallah, right? Anyone who's taking the second time FYP 1? No. Okay. Now, my question to you is, what is FYP 1 for? What is FYP 2 for? Anyone think they have the answer? Or do you understand the question? Do you have the answer? Do you mean personally? What is it for?
Maybe FYP 1 is to clarify what objectives and what you want to achieve.
Okay.
And FYP 2 is actually moving forward with that.
Alright. The same? Any difference? Okay. Because if that's your answer, then your report should reflect that. Right? If you tell a different story, then it doesn't reflect that, right? So then each chapter, does it reflect what you just said, for example, right? Now, this is just a question, just to see each of you what do you think. Is it the case of FYP 1 and FYP 2 two different projects, or FYP 1 and FYP 2 cover different aspects of the same project, or FYP 1 and FYP 2 are different phase of the same project, or FYP 2 is to complete unfinished FYP 1? Which one do you think, or from your perspective? 3? Your opinion? Or it's not a problem if you get it wrong now. It may be a problem if when you present your FYP 1, you still do not know. That's the main concern, right? Now, so it's basically this one. Meaning that it's this one project, but you divide into 2 phases. Right? It's not covering this different aspect. It's not like FYP 1 I settle this. For example, you want to make a car, FYP 1 and the engine, FYP 2 and the chassis. It's not like that. It's actually the phase towards completion. Right? It's because it's fundamentally 2 different things between 2 and 3. Of course, 2 different projects is totally wrong. That's not it. And this one is not the case also. Right. So if you structure it in that way, FYP 2, because the whole project is to achieve something, you have the objective in the end, at the front, you have to achieve it in the end. You want to compare something, you want to analyze the effect of something. I'm not sure what is your objective. So FYP 2, you should already perform the analysis to achieve the objective, right? And FYP should have analysis component to achieve the objective. You cannot just run something the analysis part is crucial. And FYP 1, fundamentally it is to formulate the methodology for implementation of analysis in FYP 2, meaning that you have to formulate the methodology to do this. From here, any question? Do you understand that? So, at the end of FYP 2, you have to define your conclusion already. Meaning that you have the result, you have the analysis, you plot something, and you say, my conclusion is this is better than that, for example, right? You have to be able to. That is the best case scenario. If you go to FYP 2 presentation, very rarely our students actually get to this. Do you understand that? Meaning you already have your conclusion. And the question will be, is that conclusion right? Something like that, the discussion. Most students, because if the discussion is on that level, then you should be okay. Normally the question is before that, what are you doing actually? Mainly it's before that, you haven't settled the earlier phase. Right? So you should be able, so if you go to, I don't know, normally the student do not think it's crucial to just step into FYP 2 presentation of your senior, right, for example. But it gives you some idea of what should be going on. So that's the best case scenario and what should happen. And FYP 1 is you define your methodology. Meaning, you should already have the answer in FYP 2 next semester. I will do this and this and this, and here is why. And you can, meaning the question will be, why didn't you consider that other approach, or etc. etc. Meaning it's about the methodology. So that's the best case scenario. If the question is, are you clear of your objective or something, then it signal a very bad grade because it's the question from the more fundamental part, right? So if you go into the step by step, first you set the objective, then you do the literature review. Now here is the question: is this necessary to get this? Meaning, like I said, this is the presentation and the report is fundamentally to define what you want to do next semester. Is this necessary, literature review? Do you think? Are you doing literature review now? Completed already? No? Because I think most students, the way they do literature review is totally detached from this. It's just, we'll go into that in more detail. Because literature review should cover these things, concept and research done previously. Why is that necessary? Because you want to formulate your own methodology. For example, you say, oh, that guy already did using this one. I want to emulate his way, or I want to change or improve his way. Discussion like that. Then you will formulate, now my methodology is this in the different chapter, right? Then you have to define. How you define? Normally from the literature review. You cannot just goreng and make up stories, right? You have to define by other established literature already do this, is a good way, etc. Something like that. So that's the purpose, and that will actually affect how you do literature review. Most students, they just we'll talk about how many students do literature review. I'm not sure how you did so far. And then FYP 2, hopefully next semester, you will execute the methodology, you present the result, you execute methodology, meaning you analyze things, you do testing, etc. You present the result, and then you make the conclusion based on the objective. For example, the objective is to evaluate whether this is suitable for Malaysia, for example. So conclusion, no, not suitable, or yes, suitable, with this motivation, blah blah blah. So then you have to define that. So you have to have this overall picture of, oh, okay, this is my FYP. So at the end of FYP 1, it's because I observe many students when we talk, when I ask about how we want to do. Normally the answer is, I will think about it next semester. Which means they still cannot define methodology, they don't even know the methodology yet. So they cannot present it. Meaning there's something wrong here, because formulation of methodology directly related to literature review. If you cannot define your methodology, then your literature review does not carry any meaning. Because the purpose is that. Is that clear? Right. So this one we go specific on FYP1. So we want to formulate methodology for implementation of analysis in FYP2. So again, this is the flow of the whole FYP, set objective that we have saw before. So this one normally relate to first chapter. You have the introduction, objective there, background is there, and then it's up to each of you which way you think is suitable for you. For example, one student might prefer you have chapter 2 literature review that covers the whole thing. Personally, I have a bias towards this one. I normally have different chapter for this and this. Oh no, not sorry, this and this. For concept and then for research done. Because the discussion is a bit different. If you talk about the concept of mechanical properties or normally from textbook stuff, it's more on the concept. But when you talk about this guy do what, this guy did what from journal, it's more on this one. And normally your methodology comes from the journal part. Right? And then chapter 3 or 4 depend on which way you do it. Is you present your methodology that you have established, okay, this is what I think I want to do, and then you conclude. Right? So that's the how you should structure, generally speaking, the option how you structure your FYP1. If you have any question at any point, you can straight away ask. Right? So that's how, because what I'm doing here is structure the report that I want to do step by step from the beginning. What is it? This is the flow. Then I structure, and then we'll go into more detail on what do I need to cover in each chapter. So chapter 1, introduction. So I will put on question that generally speaking you should answer in your chapter. What's the motivation? So normally background is to answer this one. So if your background you merepek benda yang tak ada kaitan, it's just a waste of space. You understand? Meaning it should highlight, oh, this is important because what? Right? Why is it important? What's the problem they want to address? Meaning this is a problem statement. I noticed that some students they write those things titled problem statement, but under that it doesn't actually address what problem they want to solve. They just still make a what is in English? Ayat penyata? Statement. Statement. You just make a statement. You do not actually highlight what is the problem that I want to solve, right? So that's the problem. What's the specific objective? Then you outline 1, 2, 3, whatever the objective, and scope division. So scope meaning that some question is too big if you do not make it into a scope. My scope is within Malaysia, within only sedan. For example, if you talk about electric car, for example, right? So that's a scope. So that meaning you already put the boundary so that if anyone asks later on about something else, no, my scope is only sedans. I don't cover about trucks, etc. Right? So that's the important of scope, if any. And then towards the end, normally you should also. It's good to actually state, okay, my report will be structured in this way. I will first establish my case. I will search into the literature to formulate my methodology. I then present methodology, and I will conclude what I'll be doing next semester, etc. So that's chapter 1, generally speaking. If you answer all of this, it should be fine. Right? The worst case scenario, not the worst, but if any of your chapter, normally chapter 1 not that much of a problem, but still I see, for example, the first thing I will see if I'm the examiner, I will see this one. Objective. If the objective is not clear, and I start to answer what is exactly your objective, and if you can concisely answer, that's quite okay, it doesn't take that much time. But if you yourself fail to address it in limited time, you'll notice that the whole Q&A of the presentation will be around this area. We do not ever cover chapter 2 or 3 or 4. then the perception about your level of your project will be very low, and that will affect your mark, generally speaking. Right, so the best case scenario is no question will be asked because when the examiner read, they state we understand. For example, chapter 1, all of this is already answered clearly in your report, so they will not ask in the presentation. They will go. The best case scenario is until the end. They will ask whatever the conclusion is. But that's how you should think. If you're stuck here and then that's the worst case scenario. Chapter 2, literature review. Before we go to the question that you should answer in literature review, so we go back to here. What is a literature review? In your seminar, when did you take last semester? Did you all have a task about literature review or something? So I do expect that you have some idea of what literature review should be. So several things. It should not, or it does not equal to literature compilation, which is many students will do this. You know, compilation you just compile literature. Of course, even worse is literature copy and paste. Copy paste, right? So that's the worst case scenario. Any of you who actually doing that right now, hopefully you have time to rectify that one. Compilation is still okay when you compile, but it's still not a review, right? So the keyword here is review, not the literature. So what's the when we say review, do you have something in mind? If we go movie review, what do you expect? Summary, feedback. Feedback meaning what?
The storyline.
This what happened.
Yes.
Anything else? Do you see something like this? For example, this I have just snapshot from I just Google movie review. It says that okay, this movie Parent Trap is great for all ages. It's a kid movie. Trust me on this, you'll enjoy it. Do you find this kind of statement in movie review? Oh no, ini pernah baca movie review. Itu you can't go. If you have never read movie review, then that's something. Because and then you have how many stars? 5 stars, 4.5 stars. Now the listings is not how to say. You cannot capture it straight away from the movie. It's basically your opinion, right? Meaning one people can say 5 stars, one people can say 4 stars. One person can trust me, you will enjoy it. Another person can say that's totally boring. But that's a review. If you just say this is the plot without putting some judgment on, so the plot is okay or no, this plot is lousy, that doesn't go to the extent of a review. That's a summary, right? So you have you have the synopsis, you have the film background. This is the thing that normally I want to highlight. You have the argument of whether it's good or not, etc., and then relevance to relate to the audience. Do not miss it or something like that, right? So that the audience will know what's the conclusion of your review. Do you get what I'm trying to get here? Meaning most students in their literature review, they will totally miss on this thing. They just put in word by word something is already in the literature without commenting on it. Oh, this is not relevant for Malaysia. Just direct comment like that, right? For example. Similarly here, this is a gadget review, right? So, of course, it does have some technical information. But what it do is not just stating, but it compares side by side. You put a star, something like that, and this ranking is by, for example, this side here, right? Different sides have different ranking, for example, right? But based on this judgment, they will say, this is the best, second, third. So this is another example of a review, where it doesn't just say, okay, this is the spec, and end like that, right? So now, in this chapter, so based on that understanding, yes.
So we have to still mention as well how is that review in that literature is different from ours. For example, that one has cross. So do you mention okay, this is different than what I do or something?
It should. If it's different, is it same? Are you using it as a basis, or are you saying that is not relevant to our case or whatever it is. So that, because if you just put it like that, it doesn't carry the meaning directly into what you will do later on. It's just you put there and I don't care, right? So some of the elements, okay, any question you can ask. Literature review. So the first part is obviously the normally the theoretical part. What is your topic actually? Meaning what is, I don't know, what's your topic, for example? Autonomous vehicle, electric, what is it, for example? So that's concept. What are the related fundamentals? So it involves this concept, whatever concept, right? So things like this normally you can just, because there's no, what is the word? There's no in word khilaf lah. There's no khilaf. There's no counter opinion. There's no difference of opinion of what is so and so. What is mechanical properties, right? But when you go to this one, what have other researchers done on the same objective or analysis? So this one we can discuss a lot in the sense that you should be interested in anyone who have done study to achieve the same thing that you want to achieve. That's one thing. You should be also interested in anyone who done any study, even though their objective is totally different, but their way of doing you can adopt. You understand? For example, I'm doing for electric vehicle. You find a study that doing on combustion, but their way of testing, you think, oh, I can try to use here, for example, right? So the objective is different. So that's one thing, what others have done. How they do it, so the methodology. So they do it by this equipment or by this testing, etc. What did they find out? Oh, they find out that this car is better than that or anything. What are the conclusion? The conclusion is this is the best car in the whole world, etc. For example, right? So this thing, it will be interesting when, for example, whatever question here, you will see different of conclusion or different of opinion, etc. For example, if you read some of the Western side, they are perhaps in certain area, for example, they might be attacking palm oil industry because they have their own their own agenda they want to protect in that sense. So if you read from this region, they will have a directly opposite of that in terms of that. So these are the where you should put your comment. This is different because blah blah blah, etc. Right? So that's a review basically, which will affect on how all of this help to formulate your methodology. Right? So yeah, the narrative that you have can be many different versions. For example, one version is you cover all, and the point that is obvious is no one actually explored this option. I want to go for it. So that's one conclusion from there. No one ever studied it. Or they have studied it, but this one says this is better, but this one says the opposite, etc., etc. So I think because they are testing in different countries, so you cannot just simply take, I want to test in Malaysia to put my input. So those are different conclusion that you can get or different review that you can put. So generally speaking, that is a good literature review. Right.
So like at the end we mention as well what we want to do.
Yeah. But okay, any specific result? This is another thing that I think anyone who will be doing simulation, this one will become important, right? Because one of the things that you will have to do in simulation, anyone who is doing simulation, is validation. You understand that, right? So validation, you should have experimental result or valid result that you compare to conclude that my simulation is valid. The way I do is valid because the result will be exactly the same as theirs. So you have to have that result. If you have the opportunity to do both, then you do your own testing and then you validate straight away. But if you do only simulation because of funding or no money or whatever, no material, then you have to depend on or rely on any valid result from elsewhere. And that should be already established here. You said, this is good, this will be my basis, for example, right? If you cannot find this in FYP1, you're in trouble because your methodology is not yet foolproof in the sense that whatever you do later on, you cannot validate. And that's a big problem because if you cannot validate your process, why should I hear your result? You get that idea? Like meaning you can get all the graph that you plot, but I will not be interested because I still be skeptical on whether you do what are you doing the right thing or wrong, right? Because you never validate. So that's the thing from literature. Alright. And then so the difference between chapter 2 and 3 is that in chapter 2 you are using all the literature to discuss on methodology. So for example, some of the conclusion is that this method that he is using is interesting, I want to try. For example, the discussion will be in that sense. In this chapter, you actually put all together all those discussion into one flow of methodology. In the next semester, this is actually what I want to do, step by step. Right? So each chapter, personally, I would prefer you have this one. You reiterate back. Okay, again, our objective in the beginning is this. We want to achieve this, and then straight away, and this is how I want to do it. You outline a methodology, and it can be from the perspective of flowchart, right? So I will do literature review, I will search for this one, and I will do what, until your objective is achieved. Meaning, your flowchart is the whole FYP1 and FYP2. That's your project. So this is another thing. If you truly understand, or you truly see in the beginning, FYP1 and FYP2 is one project but different phase, your flowchart should cover both. Many students somehow their flowchart only cover halfway. Then what? Many it begs the question, how do I understand the rest? Right? It's not clear. Now, so I write it like this because this chapter comes after chapter literature review. So the actual implementation of literature review already discussed in depth in chapter 2. So in chapter 3, because you are talking about your methodology, and your literature review is actually part of your methodology. Understand? So you just say literature review is already covered in the previous chapter. We are trying to dig out possible blah blah blah. And then we have concluded that we will be using this or we will be excluding this or whatever. The literature review have done, it's completed, for example. So if they want to know more, they will refer to chapter 2. But it should be here because there's chapters outline your methodology from the beginning until the end, including what you have started in FYP1. So are you doing experimental or simulation or both in doing the analysis, and why? It should be clear also. Even if the answer is because I don't have money, right? And this is where the literature review should be related in a way that you should be able to answer like this. Because I think some students, they are quite lucky in a way because they get a project where the lecturer already have outlined what they need to do. Some students get a lecture where you actually start from scratch your FYP. In which category are you? Do you understand? There's some students, when they select the title, the lecturer already have the specific thing you need to do, and then you mainly just implement to get the result. For some title, it's basically you are starting from zero and planning the whole thing. Which category are you mainly? From zero. Anyone who have got the lecturer that actually have a project running and you have become part of that? No? Okay, then that's not. Because some students that get that kind of project, they are quite lucky because the methodology is outlined already, because the lecturer already want this methodology. But the problem is they have to understand why is it like that. So they cannot answer because my lecturer say then your mark will be because even though you're doing the right thing, but you don't even know why. Understand? So what I'm getting at is, okay, now from the literature review, you should be able to say something like, okay, this is the best method that I can find, I want to do it, but I have also search around the lab in KOE in IIM. We don't have that equipment, we don't have the money, so I have to compromise, blah blah blah. So that should answer, because some lecturer will ask, or some examiner will ask, why don't you use this one? Because sometimes they know a lot of things and they know the best method. You should be able to say, I understand that method, I have literature it, it's my literature view, but I cannot do it because we don't have that equipment. I mean, you have to be able to say that. You cannot just say, lecturer say use that one. You cannot say like that. This is for the best grade, I mean. Right? How will you be doing the experimental simulation? So this is the technical thing that you should already have before you end FYP 1, even though the implementation is FYP 2. How will you do it? What are the input parameter or specimen design? Meaning, if you want to do experimental, most of you do simulation or experimental? Simulation. All of you simulation. Anyone experiment? All simulation. Okay, simulation meaning you have to be able to specify what is the input parameter, right? And then what are the boundary conditions. You cannot say I will use that software, but I will see what. Meaning you should already have the answer. This is boundary condition. This is the specimen size I put in this software. The testing condition, the load is in this at this point in this way, whatever. Precaution measures. This is more experimental. And what data should be collected. And from there, I will extract the data of stress distribution, blah blah blah. Meaning those things you should already have to outline in your methodology. The best case scenario, as I mentioned earlier, is the lecturer will see that everything is here. They don't need to ask on that. Right? Meaning okay, this is great. Otherwise, the discussion will be long and yeah. I think one case that I think this is even in FYP 2. This is the worst case scenario that can happen is because the student failed to explain the way that model in the software. In the end, this was I don't want to say the lecturer's name. He ended up giving the marker. Okay, please draw the free body diagram on the whiteboard. And the student actually failed to do that. And then if you don't even know how to draw the free body diagram of whatever you simulating, then there's no reason for me to trust your whatever you simulate. You understand that? Because simulation you just press and you get something, right? But we will not trust whatever you do. You do not deliver that. I totally know what I'm doing. This is exactly how I'm doing. This is what my input, right? Any question? No? Okay. Make sure you have all this. And this is where my suggestion is do not wait until you finish your literature review to write this chapter. Because when you write, then you will know, wait, I don't have the information. Then you search what is literature, what is the speed people use, those things. So it's the best case scenario, but now it's already towards the end. But the best case scenario, this one you actually write early, so that you know all the information that you actually need to find. I need to find what software, I need to find the boundary condition, I need to find what data should be compared, I need to find blah blah blah, right? And those can be found in literature. And then how analysis will be done on the collected data. This is also important. You have to look how people analyze and how people make conclusion. Or they plot, they get the graph, or they put side by side, or they whatever they do, they compare with the benchmark, whatever it is. So these are the things that the best case scenario, all of these are answered in your report. That the lecturer do not need to ask you in the presentation. That's the best case scenario. If this is missing, then the question and answer will really drill you on this. And I think most students, when they are drilled in technical things like this, they tend to become panic a bit, right? Meaning they get flustered and that will, meaning the mood of the presentation will be quite chaotic, and it becomes more difficult to control from your end, right? So the best case scenario is just look in my report, it's there. You tak baca. Tu kalau lecturer tak baca lah. good lecturer they will read and they know already you know what you are doing, right? But most students I notice most of these are missing. That's why we ask, kenapa you going to split 2? And you cannot answer, then why should you go into FYP 2? You don't even know what to do. Because in FYP 2, the ideal case is, because even if you know what you want to do exactly, the time will just enough for that. There's no time for you to still, finding information to formulate your methodology in a way, right, generally speaking. So, yeah. How will the conclusion made? Any question there? Okay. So those are the questions that should already answer in your methodology. So it will be from the beginning until the end. All of these are covered from how you obtain your methodology, how you formulate methodology, until how you will be making the conclusion in the end. Right. The best case scenario, I think this very rarely happen. The best case scenario is the lecturer is totally impressed on you already answered this one. They will just add on some additional tips, or it's better if you add this one, right? That, if the discussion goes that way, normally you know you are in a good position. If you have many questions in a more attacking way, what is this? Did you not consider this one? Didn't you read this one? Then normally, yeah. Okay. And then conclusion. This is the chapter. Reiterate your objective, what you want to achieve. Reiterate your objective for FYP1. This is the full objective. This is objective FYP1. You want to formulate your methodology, whatever. And then recap what successfully achieved. So we have shown that we have successfully formulated this methodology. The Gantt chart is already ready. I know exactly what to do in FYP2, meaning in a good sentence. So what's next? Implementation of the methodology in FYP2, basically. Right? So that's a good conclusion. This is one of the normal conclusion. Alhamdulillah, we have successfully that verse. And then when you ask what you successfully achieve, actually I didn't complete that one. So it's totally contradict what you conclude and what actually happened. That is, that cannot, meaning do avoid making statement like that, because the impression will be negative. If you actually fail to get something, you should put it, because how to say, any stumbling block that you face, it's good actually if you put it in part of your report. Do you understand that? Because normally we do not put this one, but you should. This is assuming you actually doing the right thing. Meaning you have tried to go this way, and then suddenly there's something wrong there. I want to plan like this, but only now suddenly the brother in the lab says that equipment is broken. Until next semester I cannot. So I have to rectify my methodology. I have to find alternative. So, but I just know that last week. Meaning that kind of discussion, it show that you are honest. Second, you know what's going on even though there's a problem. Right? Meaning you have already planned and you have already asked. And that's another thing. Please do. But if you do simulation, then you do not involve lab. But if you do experimental, you have to actually know exactly when the lecturer say, why do you want to do this testing? You should be able to say, I need that lab. No, I will try to find. And then let's say, no, you cannot find because it's not available. And then it means that you don't even process what you want to actually do with what is available, right? Okay. For simulation, then you should be able to identify straight away what is the software. Okay. Additional on software, this is what is quite different than you do experiment. For software, because for experimental, when you just look at the equipment, normally you can straight away understand generally how it works, and you can plan and you can explain. But for simulation, unless you actually try something, it's very hard for you to explain what you want to do with it. If you just know the name, for example, right? Hopefully you have tried your whatever. And then you'll say, because the question, about the methodology, they will ask, what's the boundary connection, how will you set that one, for example, right? And you say, you can answer if you have tried a bit. If you have never tried, make sure you try before because then you know that what function is available, what function is not, etc. etc. So that's the additional part for those who will be doing simulation. You actually have to try doing something with that software. Alright, so this is towards the end already. So your report should have continuity. Now, if you do as I mentioned, then the whole report becomes one flow of the process of the FYP. Normally, what happens is this is the literature review chapter normally is totally detached. If you wrote now, I think one of my concerns is like this. Some of my students, when they want to benchmark their report, they actually refer to the previous students. I can say something like this. Most of FYP report that you can find of your senior, if you follow what they do, you generally will get the grade that they have, which is very low. Majority of report, meaning if you just want to pass, it can pass, but the grade is quite low. Do you understand? Meaning normally below B, C plus. So if you just emulate that one, it will be very poor. So it's very hard to find a good report, as I mentioned, cover all of those things, right? Because rarely people get a good mark in FYP, I think, generally speaking. Now, each part has a purpose, fits into the flow, right? One thing I think is because most of the students do not even have a purpose for literature review. Meaning, if I totally take out the literature review chapter, it doesn't affect their report. Meaning that chapter it is not necessary. But if you fulfill what we discussed here, that is integral part of the whole story, right? Because that is where you formulate things. So that's one thing. Second, this is about plagiarism. So hopefully you have gone through the idea about this in seminar. Do you cover this in seminars, plagiarism or not? Because this is the way, and this is because when you do literature review, the way you do it should be not plagiarism. Do you understand that, or should it be explained? Understand, right? So of course, when you copy paste, most of the time it will become plagiarism. Most of them try to paraphrase. And now, I'm not sure because one of my students, they use this, I don't know, is it software or internet website where it paraphrase for you? You need to copy paste and then it paraphrase for you. Now, this become very, very, it can expose you unless whatever you use is capable for technical words. Because most of them, they are not tailor-made for engineering, for example. So the words become weird, meaning because some technical, I don't know how to give you an example. Meaning some words, they are different meaning in different field. So they paraphrase according to that one, and when we read, it becomes so weird. So it will expose you that it's not your actually. The worst case scenario is when in the presentation we ask, what do you mean by the sentence? And you cannot even answer, meaning it's not your own writing. If you write yourself, even though, for example, some students, they have bad command of English, but they still can answer what they write, right? Meaning they understand, but people don't understand. That's one thing that is poor. But the worst than that is, they just let some software do, and they don't even understand what is there. So then, it really exposes, better you do FYP again next semester, something like that, right? So make sure you do not do things like that. Anyway, now this is just a little bit towards the end, because one of the main common question is, based on what I explained, how long should the literature review be? In your perception, how long do you think it should be? Based on which we say it should answer all of those, the best case scenario. Right now, because this is towards your submission date already, right? How long is your literature review? Kita tak buat lagi. You dah tulis dulu? Kita tak tahu?
10.
Roughly 10 page. Similar? Anyone who have a quite long literature review? Or 1-2 page? That's even. Now, okay, this is just a quote, but this one is not related to literature review. How long should you try until? Do you understand this? Meaning until, as long as you haven't reached it, well, meaning as long as it takes, right? Now, so similar concept applies, but not in the literal way. So, what is the purpose of literature review? Hopefully you can answer it now. So there's a purpose and objective. So there are several scenarios. Many students, if they want to answer all of those, they will have a very long literature review, right? And they achieve the objective. Okay, this is fine. But a very good student, or very good, is when you have very short and achieve the objective. If you see, for example, if you see journal paper, I think you have seen some right now, right? Did you notice how many references in one paragraph? How many numbers? There's a lot, right? But most students, we have 2 paragraphs for 1 reference. That's why it becomes long. Someone who is good can combine information from different sources into 1 paragraph. Now, to do this, I think if you take whatever they write and you try to modify, it's quite impossible to make it short. The only way if you want to make it short is, like I mentioned, you have the question. You try to answer without copying the sentence, but from your understanding. For example, the question is Malaysia ready for electric vehicle? For example, that question, right? So you can just say, from this guy, he say we are ready, but this guy disagree. He say we don't ready because we don't have infrastructure. This guy says, meaning you formulate your own sentence and you will see you will have 4 or 5 reference in one sentence. Then you already have 1 paragraph that completely answer that question. If you try to copy paste, it will be 5-6 paragraph to answer the same question. So that's why it becomes long, for example, right? So it does require some process to be able to do that, right? Now, but many students, if they have it short, normally they didn't cover all the questions. Like if you have 1 or 2 pages, most probably you only cover, for example, the concept without going to the previous study, etc. The worst case scenario is if you have very long but still do not cover. The lecturer will become fed up with this. Baca budak ni merepek dia. This tend to happen when you copy and paste too much. You take from anything and then you put in and it become long. And after we did 1-2 pages, we already know there's no flow in this. There's no reason why this paragraph is here. You understand? So this, as long as this doesn't happen, that's okay. This is the best case scenario. But this one is still okay. But we really, if you can do this, then that's awesome. Okay, there are several ways to do that. I think when I was a student, my supervisor, they always ask me like this. You make a table. For example, you have a question. For example, question is like this: who have used this method? So I have all those type of question and table. Meaning table is reference ataupun the guy that do the study, and yes or no. Meaning this method, yes or no, yes method, yes or no, this method, yes or no. So when I read one reference, I will straightaway pick up, okay, he use this one, he doesn't use this one, he doesn't mention, I don't know, for example, right? So when you have a table like that, then you put aside those things, you can make your sentence on your own based on the table. It becomes easier because you have 5 reference already. You can say, okay, this guy used this one, meaning, you understand? Because if you straight away from the source material, normally it's hard to formulate our own sentence. So that's one way to do it, right? Okay, this one is, hopefully you know what citation format you should do. Just a mention. Okay, this is already the end of the slide. Any question or any answer before we end?
Yep. For the chapter 2, you talk about the validation.
Validation.
Means for the expected result to chapter 2 or in conclusion?
Expected result.
Yes. As a validation.
And what do you mean expected result as validation?
Means when we do the methodology, we do not perform our display.
Yeah.
Means the validation means validation in our methodology part or in literature review.
Okay. When I mentioned about validation in literature review is more towards finding any available result from literature review, from literature, that you can and you want to use as your validation reference. Meaning that you say, I found this one, you have all good. Because normally for validation, you have to have several things. One is you have to know exactly how they do the experiment or simulation. Because you cannot compare when you don't even know what material they use. Meaning it should be the same material, it should be the same speed, and then you compare the result. If they do use something that you don't know, that's a problem. That's normally one problem. Number two, you have to have also some detailed result. Because when you want to compare, you have to because not all reference give things in detail. Sometimes they just say it increase or meaning, but we don't know the slope, for example, right? And not know what's your title. So if they have complete input and complete result, that's a good reference to use as your validation. So that kind of discussion is in literature review. Or this one I want to use, but unfortunately I think they didn't specify what so it's quite problematic. You can try that kind of discussion. But when you go in chapter 3, you say blah blah blah, you will do this one, and then here you will do the validation. There you just say you use the reference that you already stated in chapter 2, but the focus there is more on how you will do your validation. So that's where you will specify, or the input is this based on that one. So I'll compare with this result based on that, and I do expect it will match, something like that. So that is the story in chapter 3. When you talk about your own methodology, in FYP 2. But in chapter 2, basically the story is what is my validation reference. So if you meaning you compare different and you state suitability of the genre. Anything? Any other question? No? Alright, so all the best. Hopefully you still have the time. It's already crunch time, but when is your submission date? 12? November? December. So, okay. Alright, all the best. So hopefully you will be among those who will have no fundamental question about your methodology, hopefully, inshallah. And yeah, all the best. So we can end the session here, inshallah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.